"You're not their father, you're their servant," Emily declared as I poured cereal, my back to her, sporting the goofy apron our daughter gifted me for Father's Day. I halted mid-pour, cereal dangling in limbo. Without glancing up, I let the milk trickle into the bowl, each drop echoing a man's pride slipping away. She stood behind me, savoring her $6 cold brew like it was a trophy, her slow sip underscoring a quip she thought was brilliant, a sip that screamed, "Listen to me." Our son peeked up from his toast, our daughter barely blinked. They were numb to it. "You treat this dad role like it's a Broadway show," Emily tossed out, her tone dry yet smug, as if my sweater was a clown costume. She dragged out pathetic like it was a chore to say, boredom creeping in by the second syllable. Then, with a pivot, her heels clicked like a self-congratulatory cheer, and she sauntered out, leaving me with soggy flakes and 2 kids who didn't sign up for this drama. But the real sting came later that night. During her weekly wine and gripe Zoom with friends, I was tidying the hallway, her house elf, apparently, when her voice cut through. "Honestly, ladies, I've got 3 kids, not 2. Mark's one of them. He fusses over spelling tests more than I did for my MBA." Their laughter was sharp, merciless, a cackle that pegged me as the punchline. I paused, gripping the laundry basket, something inside me coiling, not rage or sorrow, but a quiet, icy snap like a deadbolt sliding into place. At dinner, I tried to let it slide. Really, I did. The kids chattered about school, our daughter, Lily, buzzing about her art project. I dished out homemade lasagna, not the store-bought stuff. Emily took a bite, smirked, and said, loud enough for the kids to hear, "Guess I'm parenting 3, aren't I?" No one chuckled. The silence was precise, cutting. Our son, Ethan, set his fork down. Lily stared at her plate. I just met Emily's gaze, wordless. Something in my eyes must have flickered because her smirk wavered briefly before snapping back like a habit. She thought she'd triumphed, that I was still pliable, safe. She didn't sense the ground shifting beneath her. After that night, I started rising 10 minutes earlier, not to brew her coffee, she could manage that, but to dig into a folder marked Personal Legal. I made discreet calls between school runs and piano pickups, locked her out of my cloud storage, and printed bank statements, receipts, small steps, nothing flashy, just foundation laying. She never noticed, she thought my efforts were trivial, invisible. To her, parenting was just diapers, carpools, and bedtime stories that didn't matter. She believed power lay in controlling the narrative, the charm, the account passwords. But I held the pulse. I made mornings smooth, remembered the kids' checkups, their friends' names, the rhythm of their sleep. I was their safe harbor when the world roared. And she ridiculed it. So I stopped playing servant. I became something else, something she'd only see when it was too late to halt. First, I cut her Nordstrom card. Not for the money, she paid it off religiously, but to test if she'd miss her perks before she missed me. She didn't. She kept splurging on overpriced yoga gear and brunch outfits like she was starring in a reality show. I watched her glance at a receipt one morning, her thumb flicking it aside like she did my thoughts. When the payment declined, email landed, she blamed the bank's security and re-entered the joint card, oblivious that I'd removed myself from it the night before. That was the start. No yelling, no ultimatums, no name calling. I just got quiet, deliberately small. I stopped nudging her about utility bills, let her prized lawn service lapse after 3 ignored invoices. When she griped about backyard weeds one Saturday, I grinned and said, "Guess I've been too busy raising myself." Her eye twitched. She forced a laugh, but it was hollow. I pulled back from everything I used to uphold the vacation budget, the home maintenance list, the PDA group login. She forgot the password, naturally. She used to text me to fix it during her meetings. Now, nothing. Let her feel the void without knowing it was me. Meanwhile, the kids and I grew closer. I walked them to school as always, but let them steer the conversation. Ethan dove into World War II facts. Lily mused about colors that felt sad. I didn't steer, I listened. We became a tight trio, circling a woman who hadn't noticed she'd lost her pull. We stopped needing her center. I met a lawyer in a repurposed dentist's office, back room, old orthodontic space turned legal hub. He kept it low-key for privacy, which I respected. We discussed dividing assets, custody plans, financial restructuring. His first question, "You want a fight or a way out?" I said neither, just options. We met again, rerouting investments subtly, securing the kids' college funds under my sole control. Emily was no longer a beneficiary. At dinner, Emily lobbed another jab. "Mark's been so quiet lately. Probably puzzling over how to toast bread." Lily frowned. Ethan stayed focused on his plate, his foot tapping anxiously, a new tick. Emily didn't see it. She sipped her wine like every meal was a happy hour, with me as the free jester. She kept mocking me in her group chats, unaware the family iPad, synced to her iCloud, betrayed her. I didn't read everything, just glimpsed the photos. One of my sock sandal look at the school picnic, captioned, "He thinks he's a dad influencer," face with tears of joy loudly crying face. Comments piled on a hearts, "OMG stop, you're a saint, girl." Another showed me folding laundry while Ethan did homework nearby, captioned, "Parenting 2 kids and a 63-year-old toddler woozy face." I lingered on that image, not on me, but Ethan, his head tilted toward me, serene. I wasn't raising myself. I was the framework holding us steady while she turned it into memes. The house was changing. I felt it in the pauses after her jabs, the hitch in the kid's breath when she laughed too loudly. Lily started seeking me out for stomachaches instead of calling for her. Emily thought I was fading. But I wasn't leaving. I was realigning, silently, methodically, and soon she'd feel the gap between being mocked and being missed. "I'm going fishing," I announced one Friday evening, casual, like I hadn't planned it for weeks. Emily glanced up from her phone, likely mid-roast in a chat, and arched a brow. "You?" she said, smirking. "With what gear? What patience?" "With a rod and the patience you say I squander on the kids," I replied, folding a towel. "Just a morning trip. You'll have the place to yourself." She laughed, not at the fishing, but at the idea of her in charge. "Oh no," she said, feigning dread. "Don't leave me with my own kids. How will I cope?" I didn't react, just nodded. "You'll manage." Then I walked away. Saturday morning, I made my coffee, grabbed my tackle box like I cared about the catch, and kissed the kids goodbye. Ethan was already cranky. Lily had swiped his charger. Emily, in her robe, scrolled her phone, barely tuned in. By the time I hit the road, I knew how it'd unfold. I didn't sabotage anything, didn't coach the kids to misbehave. I just stepped back, dismantling the unseen structure I held up every weekend, the snack restocks, the peacekeeping, the rhythm that kept chaos at bay. By 11:20 a.m., her first text, "Where's Lily's inhaler?" She says she needs it, but it's not in her room. No hello, just frantic typing. I didn't reply. By noon, a missed call. Voicemail. When I strolled in at 2:10 p.m., the house was a suburban war zone. Ethan had barricaded his room, a "do not knock" sign in furious red marker. Lily sobbed on the kitchen floor over a snapped crayon and a lost iPad. The air reeked of burned toast and damp dog. The dishwasher whined. Sticky patches glued the floor. Emily stood amid it all, hair wild, last night's mascara smudged, clutching a dish towel like a lifeline she couldn't wield. "You planned this," she spat. I stepped over a spilled juice box, calm, refreshed, untouched. "Planned what?" "You knew they'd spiral. You set me up to crash." I tilted my head. "I trusted you to handle it." She blinked, thrown off, expecting a fight or an apology, but I offered neither. I just let her do what she always bragged she could. Lily cried for an hour. Ethan slammed his door. "There's syrup everywhere. Do you know how hard it is to clean a?" "I do," I cut in. Soft but firm. "I just don't make a scene about it." Lily peeked from behind the counter, saw me, and ran into my arms. Ethan's door creaked open. He nodded silently, then slipped into the bathroom. Emily watched like a stranger in her own home, still gripping the towel as if it held solutions. I poured a glass of water, sat, and let her hover. "You think this proves something?" "Nope," I said, sipping. "You just did." There's a silence that hits when someone realizes their audience stopped cheering. Emily stood in it now, no group chats, no wine-soaked giggles, no polished tales of frazzled motherhood to make her seem endearing. Just a kitchen of fallout she thought she'd dodge. I glanced at the clock, 2:15 p.m. Still a long day ahead. The day I revised my will, I wore the cardigan Emily got me last Christmas, the one she said made me look like a librarian living on broth. I wore it deliberately to lock in who she thought I was as I signed away her leverage. The attorney, Jessica, stayed quiet at first. Mid-30s, ex-litigator, eyes sharp from seeing too many friendly divorces turn brutal. When I laid out my plan, she raised a brow. "You're not out to ruin her?" "No," I said. "I'm reclaiming myself." It began with a trust, not a showy one, just a secure vault for the kids, college, medical, housing until they're 21, shielded from marital disputes. Emily couldn't touch it even if she faked a crisis or married her Pilates coach for tax perks. Jessica nodded, impressed. "This is precise. I'm done being mocked by someone who can't even sync a calendar." She grinned. Over weeks, I kept it subtle but steady. After the kids slept and Emily dozed off to true crime reruns, wine staining her shirt, I worked in my office, not ours, mine. She called it my man cave with air quotes. I added a lock. She mocked it once, I didn't bite. In that room, I built my case. A log of her digs, small but cutting. One where she told Lily to grow up after a bad dream. Another where Ethan asked about algebra and she snapped, "Ask your dad, he's the only one pretending to care." I saved receipts for her oversights, the dentist visits she skipped, the school play she swore was rescheduled. It wasn't. Screenshots too. Her private group chats? The iPad, still linked to her iCloud, sat quietly in a drawer. No pings, just evidence. One standout, sometimes I swear he's parenting just to snag some invisible award. "Bravo, you slapped together another bologna sandwich, champ." Another, "Truth is, the kids only flock to him because he's a pushover." If I vanished, they'd hardly blink. I cataloged that one meticulously, slotting it into a folder tabbed self-acknowledged emotional distance. But I didn't stop there. I ramped up my presence at school, reading sessions, field trip chaperoning, small events Emily didn't bother to clock. Teachers started knowing me as Mark, the dependable dad, not just some guy who showed up. One morning, dropping Lily off, her teacher remarked, "She's always steadier when you bring her, more at ease." It wasn't flattery, it was a quiet signal like a coded message between allies. I tucked that note away in my mental file. One Sunday, Emily was glued to her phone on the patio while the kids played indoors. She shouted toward the kitchen, "You want me to handle dinner? Or are you still rocking your Superdad costume?" I didn't respond. Instead, I snapped a picture, her, alone, scrolling, wineglass in hand, with the grocery bags I'd hauled and sitting untouched behind her. Her shadow reached toward the door but never crossed the threshold. That image joined the dossier. 3 weeks later, I met Jessica again. I laid out my evidence. She didn't gasp or offer pity. She said most clients storm in waving warning signs. "You brought a schematic." We fine-tuned the custody plan, not to crush Emily, but to lay out a truth she couldn't gloss over. Not sole custody, not yet, but enough to push for supervised visits, forcing her to demonstrate her involvement while I stopped proving mine. Jessica, sorting files, noted she still thinks she's calling the shots. I gave a nod. That's her favorite mirage. Strength done right disguises itself as quiet. I didn't raid the fortress. I siphoned the moat, rewired the gates, and shifted the furniture a fraction daily until she didn't recognize the walls she used to rail against. She thought I was still pliable. But I wasn't just parenting anymore, I was recording, planning, recalibrating. The rules had shifted and she hadn't checked the playbook. The voicemail landed right after her Tuesday spa session. You could hear the irritation in her huff as she replayed it 3 times, fumbling to skip ahead. "Hi, Ms. Carter, this is Ms. Rachel, Lily's teacher. Just following up on a minor observation. Everything's fine, but Lily seems a bit uneasy when you pick her up lately. Nothing major, just wanted to mention it. Emily cackled. Uneasy? She's 6. That's her whole personality. She swiped the message away and texted her wine crew about the meddling second-grade snitch at Roosevelt Elementary. She didn't loop me in, didn't think it warranted it until 3 days later when a formal email arrived. A digital notice from the school counselor's office requesting a solo parent meeting with me. Not Emily, not both of us. Just me. She spotted it on the shared tablet for school stuff, froze mid-scroll, and reread it 5 times. Her nails tapped the counter, the rhythm quickening with each pass. Why'd they only ask for you? She probed at night, feigning nonchalance, though her voice betrayed her simmer. Another dad of the decade stunt? I kept my eyes on the dishwasher. Not sure. Maybe about that book Lily was jittery presenting. Her eyes narrowed. What book, specifically? I went to the meeting, sat in a room with tiny chairs and colorful posters of feeling faces on the walls, facing a woman who could sense tension a month out. She shook my hand warmly. Her name was Sarah. This isn't about discipline, she began, her gaze kind but sharp. It's just something we've noticed. I nodded, waiting. Sarah leaned in, hands folded. Lily's excelling, bright, creative, courteous. But when her mom picks her up, her demeanor shifts, stiff posture, eyes down, quieter. It's consistent. Has she said anything? Not outright, but kids communicate in behaviors, Mr. Carter. And the patterns are changing. A beat. Then she also says dad like a lifeline when she's upset, even when you're not around. That often signals a primary bond. I stayed silent. No need to speak. They weren't just watching Lily, they were watching us. And Emily wasn't measuring up. I thanked Sarah, took her card, and promised to follow up if Lily shared anything specific. Back home, Emily was pacing the kitchen. How'd it go? She asked, too fast. I opened the fridge. Fine. She let out a sharp, cutting laugh, the kind she used to slice through quiet before it turned against her. What did they say? She pines for you during spelling tests, or I'm not packing organic granola. I let the fridge door shut softly. They're worried about how Lily acts when you show up. Seems it's impacting her. She stiffened just for a moment. So now schools are critiquing parenting? Christ. What's next? A TripAdvisor for tucking kids in. Her voice wavered, but she masked it with another laugh. I didn't press. I didn't need to. She did her usual, dodge, dismiss, depart. But I saw it, her first real wobble in years. It wasn't just me seeing the fractures now, it was a system, an impartial observer with logs, timestamps, and formal reports. Her untouchable status was crumbling. The first decline hit at her go-to spa. Emily booked her ritual, lavender steam, mineral scrub, curated calm. She flashed her membership card with a practiced smile, the one she saved for people she assumed earned less than her pedicure. The receptionist scanned, hesitated, scanned again, then offered that tight, pre-awkward smile. So sorry, it seems your membership's on hold due to a billing issue. Pardon? Emily's tone was razor-sharp. The receptionist flinched. Could be an error. Cards sometimes lapse. Do you have another, Emily was already thrusting her Amex forward. She paid, scoffed, acted unbothered, but it stung. That card wasn't supposed to fail. The next day, it happened again at the supermarket. $312.58. Denied. She tried again. Denied. Switched cards. Denied. The cashier's smile was strained, already scanning the next customer's kale. Emily left the cart, drove home in silence, hands trembling on the wheel. Not from being broke, but from the shock that access could evaporate. Without a heads-up, without her say-so, she burst into the house like a wounded hurricane. Found me in the living room with Lily, taping paper dragonflies to her science diorama. You locked me out, she hissed, waving her empty wallet like a flag of betrayal. Lily tensed. I tapped her arm gently. Grab your glitter pens, kiddo. She nodded and slipped away. Sharp girl. I faced Emily slowly, evenly. No heat, just truth. You said I was raising myself, I said. So I thought you'd handle the kids solo. Her jaw dropped, but no words came. She blinked, then slam. She spun, stormed down the hall, and slammed the bedroom door so hard a framed photo of Ethan crashed to the floor, glass splintering across his grin. Neither kid rushed to her. That hit me hardest. Ethan stayed in his room. I heard the faint click of his headphones. Lily returned minutes later with her pens and sat beside me like nothing happened. You okay? I asked softly. She nodded. She's just noisy today. I swallowed the knot in my throat. Emily's outburst didn't rattle the house. It hollowed it. Every space she once ruled with wit and superiority was now cloaked in silence. Not calm, but lonely. The kind that hums like a freezer at 2 a.m., just loud enough to remind you you're on your own. She texted later. This is vicious. Adults don't settle scores like this. I didn't reply. You're punishing me for not kissing your apron's hem. Act your age. Nothing. One last shot. You're not a man, you're a bank account. Without it, you're just dead weight. I forwarded that to Jessica, labeled self-admitted emotional coercion. Then I blocked her notifications. That night, she cooked dinner, her first attempt in months. The smoke detector screamed twice. Ethan ate in his room. Lily poked at her food. Emily sat at the table's head, staring at two kids who wouldn't meet her gaze. I cleaned up after. She didn't help, didn't thank me. She just stood by the kitchen window, staring into the yard like something had been swiped from it. Like she could sense the absence but not its shape. The power she scoffed at was never hers. It just humored her until it didn't. Saturday morning. The kitchen still reeked of scorched toast from her stab at a fresh start. Emily's attempt at redemption. She stood there, trying too hard to seem relaxed. Hair clipped up, lip gloss barely hiding the faint stress line that wasn't there last week. Check out this feast, she chirped. Toast, eggs, bacon. I'm basically a short-order cook now. The kids eyed their plates. Ethan pushed his eggs around. Lily dissected her toast's crust with surgical focus. Emily clapped her hands. I even squeezed fresh OJ. Not from a jug. Like Dad does. Weak attempt. Over. She laughed alone. Ethan lifted his gaze from his fork. Why do you always poke fun at Dad? The room froze. No teenage snark. No dramatic flair. Just a calm, piercing question, sharp as a blade. Emily blinked. I wasn't mocking him, honey. It was just a joke. He didn't nod, didn't break eye contact. He just went back to his eggs. Then Lily, with that gentle voice that always seemed to carry something profound, said, He's the only one who really hears us. It wasn't loud or rebellious. It was worse, it was honest. Emily stood there, gripping a spatula like it could shield her from the weight of their words. Her lips parted, then closed, like a puppet with cut strings. Kids, I was just teasing. Can't we have a little fun? Ethan shoved his chair back. Not hungry. He left, plate untouched. Lily trailed after, but paused at the door and turned. Dad always asks about our day. You just ask if we made a mess. The door clicked shut, soft but final. Emily stood center stage, props in place, but her audience had walked out. She stared at the food, perfectly prepared, perfectly cold. Something broke inside her, a quiet fracture deep in her chest. She tossed the spatula into the sink and staggered to the bathroom. I heard the door close, the fan hum on, then nothing. I stepped in minutes later, saw the untouched plates, and poured myself a glass of the orange juice she'd squeezed like she was trying to win a role in her own story. It was tart, sharp. From behind the bathroom door came a single, stifled sob, too quick to be true sorrow, more like fear dressed up as sadness. She was starting to see it, not because I pointed it out, but because they had. Her throne of wit toppled by a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old in less than 3 minutes. She thought love was sustained by habit, by being around, by curated family posts online. But love in this house had a rhythm. It was the groan of my desk chair at midnight when Ethan couldn't sleep and came to talk about his day. It was Lily's murmur during thunderstorms, "Can I stay in your room for a bit?" It was the hum of a home that worked because I quietly kept it from falling apart. Now she was hearing the silence that follows when trust packs up and moves to the other side of the house. No quip, no bacon, no forced grin could undo that. She wanted to be the star, but she'd become the glare they dodged. And me? I kept circling, steady, present. Dad. Not flashy, just there. She was still in her robe when the doorbell chimed. 3rd morning in a row. No makeup, no bra, a half-eaten piece of toast stuck to her plate like a regret she couldn't swallow. The courier didn't smile, just handed her an envelope and held out a tablet for her signature. She scrawled Emily Carter with her usual flourish, a quick flick that said, "I'm somebody." Then she saw the envelope, Carter versus Carter, notice of custody modification. Her fingers trembled. She shut the door slowly, locked it, set the envelope on the counter like it might explode, and stood there, breathing heavily for a full minute. She didn't open it immediately. She stared as if stalling could pause the fallout. When she finally slid it open with a butter knife she hadn't touched in months, she read the letter 3 times before it sank in. Mark wasn't seeking full custody. He was proposing supervised visitation twice monthly, citing emotional volatility and financial irresponsibility, worded with surgical clarity and backed by evidence. The photos, the texts, the school reports, the receipts she dismissed as trivial. He didn't come for vengeance, he came for limits. And that's what shattered her. She let out a raw, guttural scream, wordless, a tangle of fear, fury, and disbelief. She paced in circles like someone trapped in a house fire with no exit. Then she grabbed her phone and dialed. Mark, no answer. Again and again. Voicemail. Are you for real? This is unhinged. You can't do this. You think I'm unstable? You've always been the weak one. You sobbed over spilled milk, remember? This is you being spiteful because I didn't fawn over your dad act. Supervised visits? Fine. You'll be the one in therapy when this is done, you pathetic beep. Cut off. She dialed again. This isn't a game. This is our family. You're doing this after everything? After I let you stay home, let you play house, dad beep. Cut off. She yelled at the ceiling, knocked over the mug rack. Ceramic shards scattered across the tile. Then silence. Lily peered from the hallway, Ethan behind her, both in pajamas, backpacks slung over shoulders. School day. Emily didn't notice them. She was too busy coming apart. I heard about it later, not from her, never from her. The neighbor across the street texted, she seemed off today. Thought you'd want to know. By noon, her mom had called twice. She didn't answer. By 3 p.m., the spa called to confirm she'd canceled her membership for good. By 6 p.m., I got an email from her yoga instructor, checking on Emily. Skipped 3 classes. Not like her. Still no call to me. She knew anything she said now would be logged, screenshotted, or passed to someone in a suit. She wasn't just losing her ease, she was losing her standing. Unlike ease, you don't win that back with mimosa apologies or fake tears. Not when courts get involved. Not when your kid's school starts keeping notes behind your back. She used to scoff that I was too involved. She never imagined it meant I'd have everything ready when it mattered. The receptionist had barely said, "Sorry, ma'am, he's in a meeting," before Emily shoved past her, fueled by the kind of righteous anger that assumes consequences are for lesser people. She wore head-to-toe black, like she was attending her own tragedy. Maybe she thought it was mine. You think you can shame me and walk away clean? She spat, heels carving the office floor. A door opened. I stepped out. She stopped short, not expecting me to look so unfazed. No suit, just khakis and a crisp shirt, calm, composed, like someone who didn't need to raise his voice to matter. My lawyer, Jessica, stood behind me, steady as a primed weapon. Emily sneered. Well, look at him. Mr. Full Custody. Mr. Perfect Dad Dream. I tilted my head. Emily. Don't you Emily me, she snapped. You ambushed me with supervised visits. You've got the school writing reports. What's next? Spy cams in the pantry. No need, I said. You've been doing my job for me. Loudly, publicly, reliably. You know what this is? She said, stepping closer. Payback. You're bitter because I didn't cheer every time you packed a lunch or remembered a school play. I didn't flinch. You ridiculed me for being a father, but I was the only one parenting. Jessica handed her a folder. Emily grabbed it like it was a live grenade, flipped it open, and froze. First page, her group chat text. He's the third kid. I only keep him for the Costco card. Next, a counselor's report signed, consistent anxiety observed when mother is present. Father is primary stabilizing figure. Then the records, missed doctor visits, denied insurance claims from her negligence, account shifts she overlooked because she thought money equaled control. And then handwritten notes from Ethan and Lily. Ethan's, Dad's always there, even when he's exhausted, even when Mom's screaming. He listens. Lily's, I feel okay with Daddy. I don't when Mommy yells at him. Emily made a choked sound, half gasp, half snarl. You turn them against me, she stammered. You coached them. No, I said quietly. You made your shadow harsh, then blamed the light. She shook her head furiously. You think this is victory? That I'll just fade out? I'll fight this. I'll bury you in court. Jessica stepped in. You can try, but you'll be up against documents, dates, facts, and two kids who stopped smiling at your one-liners long ago. Emily clutched the folder, fingers white-knuckled, but she didn't rip it or toss it. She held it because she knew every jab, every snide grow up, every smirk was now preserved, cataloged, and turned against her, not out of spite, but through steady, relentless patience. I didn't want this, she whispered. We were a family. No, I said. I was the roots. You were just a decoration. Her face contorted like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the air. She spun and stormed out, heels clacking, rage powerless. Jessica watched her leave. She'll try something reckless next. I know, I said, but she'll be swinging at a shadow. The man she mocked is gone, and the one here now is prepared. The apartment smelled of fresh paint and shattered expectations. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, thin walls, and a downstairs neighbor who puffed pot through a towel stuffed under his door. Emily stood in the living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, staring at a scuffed IKEA coffee table like it held answers. The quiet was crushing. No kids bickering over snacks. No footsteps above. No witty barbs to toss across a kitchen she no longer owned. Just stillness. 2 weeks earlier, the court had sealed it all. No drama, no prolonged war. Mark didn't play dirty, he didn't need to. The evidence spoke. The kids' words filled the silence. The judge reviewed the files, read the children's letters, and ruled in a voice colder than the courtroom walls, full physical and legal custody to Mark Carter. Bi-weekly supervised visitation for Emily conditional. Her lawyer leaned in and muttered, "This is the best it'll get." She didn't react, didn't blink, just signed. She packed alone that night. Ethan didn't pitch in. Lily didn't weep. Mark stayed away, a quiet kindness she hadn't deserved. Now she stood in this cramped second-floor unit with a faulty buzzer and a microwave that flickered the lights when she tried popcorn. Her phone buzzed. She didn't want to check it, but she did. 3 photos, Mark at the park with the kids. Ethan laughing, real and bright. Lily clinging to his leg, clutching a dripping ice cream cone. The sunlight framed them in a golden glow. Caption, Summer's first weekend. No spite, no taunting, just life moving on. She zoomed in. Ethan looked taller, older. When had that happened? Her finger lingered over the keyboard. She wanted to type something. I miss them, tell them I love them, how's Lily's asthma? But she didn't, knowing it would sound like a script. An hour later, the doorbell buzzed. Another courier, same firm, new envelope. She signed without looking at the guy. Inside, a handwritten letter in Mark's clean, steady script. Emily, I never asked for praise or loyalty. I just wanted a home with peace and a future for the kids where laughter didn't come with strings. You said I was raising myself, but I was raising them. You were busy raising complaints. They're okay now? So am I, Mark. She read it twice, folded it carefully, and set it on the coffee table's center. She sank onto the edge of the half-built couch. A tear fell, then another, not loud, not staged, not even true grief, just the slow dawning that she'd mocked the one person who'd held it all together, quietly, tirelessly. And he'd left her nothing to break. By the time she saw the flames, the home was rebuilt on ground she no longer held, with kids who no longer sought her voice in the dark. She wasn't their mother anymore. She was a name on a document, a twice-monthly guest, a cautionary tale in someone else's story. And across town, the man she'd belittled was humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, wrapped in laughter that didn't need her permission to thrive.